Welcome to the Code with Jason meetup. It's just me and James today.
Hello.
Um, I've been messing with something new. Um, have you used this cursor editor at all, James?
I have not.
Do you happen to know anything about it?
Nope.
Okay. So I understand it's a fork of VS Code and it has AI capabilities built in. I had tried this out some months ago and it didn't really feel like a net positive to me. But I was talking with somebody this week and they were really singing the praises of it. And so I decided to give it another try. And so far I'm like reluctantly impressed. Um I had like made my opinion about it and so now I'm having to like change my mind about it and that's always hard. But I'm trying to approach it with an open mind. So I can kind of do a little bit of a demo of it by just continuing to work on this thing I'm working on.
Sure. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Uh, you said it's basically a fork of VS Code.
Uh-huh.
Therefore, does it like basically do everything VS Code can do and support all the same plugins and stuff?
I assume
It's
so.
just this stuff here is just additive.
Yeah, I've never been a VS Code user, but from what I've seen, like everything so far seems identical, so I assume that's the case.
Yeah, when you first splash it up, I'm like, oh, that's VS Code.
Right. Okay, so let's see where I'm at. This is a Python program. All the tests pass right now. Python 3 critters.py is what it's called. So right now, all this program does is it draws these two squares on the screen. Um, what I'm building right now is the bigger picture aspiration is to build an AI program that does genetic algorithms. And so I want to make these, it's called critters because there's going to be these critters that evolve. And I've done this before, but I didn't really build something that really worked in the sense that the organisms um, evolved to be better over time. Um, but I think I have a clearer idea now of how to achieve that, so I'm taking another swing at it. But
Is it, is
uh-huh.
this the same thing or similar to Conway's Life?
No, totally different.
Okay.
Um, with Conway's Game of Life has like a simple set of rules by which it operates, and I understand you have your starting state, and based on that, uh, the cells on the screen will kind of you know, flutter across the screen and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, this isn't going to be like that. This is more like there will be organisms, really simple, like probably single cell organisms, um, um, that are organisms whose behavior will be determined by a oh, what's the word? Genome. Their behavior will be determined by a genome, which will be represented as just a huge binary number, a big string of ones and zeros. Um, and there will be generations of these organisms. Um, and at each generation, they will have like a health at the end of the generation, and then maybe the healthiest two organisms will mate and produce offspring, or the healthiest organism could reproduce asexually if we want to. And then its offspring will mostly be identical to the parent, but some of them will have mutations.
I see.
Yeah, and so. every great once in a while, a mutation will turn out to have been an improvement. And over the generations, the organisms will, uh, I don't want to say be fitter because even though the expression survival of the fittest is very strongly associated with evolution, that's not exactly how it works. It's not exactly that the fittest organisms reproduce. It's that the genes that do the best job of making copies of themselves are the ones that do make copies of themselves. Probably not a relevant distinction in this picture.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I don't know how far down this rabbit hole you want to go.
uh-huh.
Maybe you want to just get to the demo.
Hmm.
Uh, Otherwise, I did have another question.
Oh yeah, please.
Uh, it seems like fittest in the survival of the fittest has a lot to do with the environment that you're in. And one uh, organism that is the fittest in one environment might not be the fittest in another environment. And the problem with your environment is that it's constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's for the whole survival of the fittest thing in how I've thought of it in the past.
Yeah, but I remember that I specifically read like, let's assume a static environment. Um, it's not necessarily that organisms would evolve to be like the species could evolve to be a certain level of fitness, and then it could evolve to be actually less fit for that environment, but the genes do a better job of propagating.
Mhm.
I can't think of an example of how that would go. Um,
It's like an illness, like cancer, say.
mm,
It's like eventually it becomes too good, right? And the organism it's feeding off of dies off, and it dies off.
maybe.
Maybe that's not quite analogous to what you were saying, but
Yeah, I mean, if you're really interested, there's a couple books, The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins and The Blind Watchmaker by Richard Dawkins. Those two are mostly what I'm basing my understanding off of. Both really excellent books.
the selfish gene and what's the other one?
Um, I just said
Watch
it.
clockmaker.
The Blind Watchmaker.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So a problem with my previous attempt at this was that my code didn't have any tests, and so it was impossible to maintain. Because this stuff gets pretty complicated pretty quick, and it got to the point where I no longer understood the program, and I would make changes expecting something to happen, but then a different thing would happen. So what I want to do here, I want to have tests, and I want to have the business of displaying the organisms in their environment and everything like that. I want to have that to be like a separate layer from the business of the evolution and all that stuff. So right now, again, all it can do is output these two red squares, but it's pretty well abstracted. I have this thing I call a cell display, and here I'm adding one cell at coordinates 0, 0, adding another cell at 1, 1. And so that's why we see these things where they are 0, 0, and 1, 1. And it's kind of I'm making it very like pixelated for simplicity. So like obviously each one of these isn't one individual pixel. Each pixel is like 10 pixels wide and tall. Um, so now I want to make it like maybe so these things can move and stuff like that. Okay. So what is the very next thing I want to do? Um, so I want to have these organisms and I want to have food cells. So I want to have organism cells and food cells. And actually, for whatever reason, I don't love this red color for the organisms, so I'm going to change that to something else. Um, let's just see what this does. Um, okay, yellow, that's fine. All right. And now I want to have, okay, so here's what I'm picturing. Another problem with my original one, and a reason why it never worked, I think, is because I had these organisms scattered across the screen kind of evenly, and I had food cells scattered across the screen the same way, and they would move around and find the food cells. But they were all competing with each other, and like the better they did, the faster the food cells would disappear. And it was like a circular thing where like um if the organisms did too well, then the food would just disappear, and then there was no like environmental pressure to make them behave differently. It just didn't make sense. So I think what I want now is like maybe, for example, 10 rows, and each of the 10 rows is its own completely isolated environment. So one organism, one environment. And so then none of the organisms are interfering with each other. Obviously, that doesn't mimic biological reality in a lot of ways, but I think that will at least make my program work. So maybe first let's shoot for a certain goal. Let's have two isolated environments. So we can have two organisms. I'll start with that, I guess. Um, easiest thing to do is just to hard code it. So let's give each one of these an x of 4. And I'll give the first one a y of 0, the second one a y of 4 also, let's say. See what that gives us. Okay. Now add a little space here. I'll move these each down 4. Okay. I want more space between them. So instead of 8, let's make this 12, let's say. Okay. Um, and I want these environments to be visually distinct. So let's add a rectangle around each of these. Um, but first, I don't want to hard code each environment. I want it to be in a loop. So here's where some cursor stuff comes into the picture. I can highlight these two, I think. I can hit Command K. I'll say put these in a loop that increments the Y value of the cell. I don't know if that's going to get the right idea or not. Okay, looks like maybe it does. Um, all right, that's not exactly what I was hoping for. All right, so I don't know what these numbers mean. The loop should iterate only twice. Huh. Neither 4 nor 6 is a 2. Oh, but 6 minus 4 is a 2. So maybe that's,
Yeah, I
yeah.
guess that's what that means. I'm not a Python person, but
Okay. So I think we can do this instead. Um, explain. Oh, wait, quick question. I can do, oh, explain range to me. Oh, okay. I didn't expect it to add comments there. That's not what I wanted. All right. I'm going to do this differently. Okay. I think I can do Command L, explain Python range to me. Start and stop. All right. I'm just going to go from 0 to 1.
it looks like it. But hold on.
Uh-huh.
It's non-inclusive of the last value.
Not inclusive of the last value.
It's yeah. Oh,
Oh, I
sorry.
see what you mean.
Yeah, yeah. So it's you want to, yeah, exactly.
And then I'll do like y times 4.
You probably want to do from 1 to 3 then,
Yeah, good point.
and make it the same as what you had.
Okay. Okay. That's what I want, but I want a bit more space, so let's do like y times 6. Okay. All right, so the first one would be at like 6 and the second one would be at 12. I guess that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Um Now we want to make it so it adds a rectangle. So how do we want to think about this? We have this cell display thing and we're adding a cell to it. I think we want to have the idea of an environment. So we can
Yeah,
say
I
like,
feel like
uh-huh.
we're working very bottom up without understanding what the up is. We're dealing with all these primitive things, and
Mhm.
maybe you in your head have an idea of what all this means, but
Well, here's my thought. Environment equals environment. So that just initializes a new instance of environment, which does not exist, and this will fail. Environment is not defined. Okay, so I'm gonna create a new class called environment, make a class called environment. Okay, and then I will save that.
what does pass do? Is that like super?
It's a no-op.
Okay,
Okay, so now if I
interesting.
run this, I expect that it won't give me that same error anymore. Oh, I have to import it. By the way, James, do you have any hard time constraints?
No,
Okay. You're a man of leisure now. Okay.
indeed.
So no errors or anything. Okay. And so now we can say cell display. Okay. So instead of directly adding the cell to the cell display, I think we want to add it to the
The
environment.
environment. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll do environment dot add cell. And that, of course, is going to give us an error because environment has no add. So I'm going to write some tests here. I'm going to copy from this existing test. Okay, from environment, import environment. I'll call it add cell. I'll say environment equals environment. And for starters, we'll just run that. Okay, so everything passes. Um, so then we can say something like this. I expect that to fail. All right, no attribute add. That makes sense. So let's add, oh, first let's make this make more sense. There we go. Let's add a method called add, and I think we can say, whoops, add a method to make the test pass. This has worked before, so let's see if it will work again. Okay. But it should be called add cell.
I think you
That,
just called it add.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
should in the sense that that would be a more appropriate name, I think.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, still fails. Cell is not defined. We have to import it. Okay, now everything passes. Okay. Cell display dot draw. Okay, so let's see what happens now when we run our file. Okay, environment object has no attribute add. Oh yeah, we're calling it wrong. Okay, the squares don't show up, not surprisingly. So we want to make it so that when we do cell display dot draw, it includes the cells from the environment. And so this program's broken, but all the tests pass. So I wonder if there's a way that we can add a test to if we can add a test that fails under these broken conditions. Okay.
Well, do you
Mhm.
want to go back to where you're doing the draw?
Let's see.
Was that
I've
in cell
confused myself here,
display?
so I'm gonna do this. Okay. Oh,
Cell display,
do
maybe, or
um
cell.
do you mean
So
here?
yeah, my question that no, the thing that actually draws the cell. I saw code for it in a test.
Do you mean
Yeah,
this?
okay, so here, yeah, there. The question I have is, don't you just want to tell the environment to draw itself, and it draws the environment with a border and all the cells that are inside it?
Good question. I've gone back and forth on this. Do I want each entity to know how to draw itself, or do I want the display to know how to draw each entity?
I see. Yeah, good point.
I'm leaning toward the latter. It seems like each entity should know how to give its display information. Like it's fine for it to say, here's my position so you can draw me. I think
Hmm.
that's fine. But if it knows how to draw itself, then like that that drawing knowledge
Yeah,
is going to get like
it
scattered.
correct. It's like these are the cell is a model, and it shouldn't have to know about the view parts, which is the display.
Yeah, I think so.
It makes sense.
Um, okay,
So
so I
the
think
model parts of it should store like its physical attributes, and then
yeah,
the part that does all the drawing would then utilize those physical attributes to lay things out on the screen.
right. Yeah, because it's like the cells in my body don't know anything about the light that's going to bounce off of them.
Right.
I mean, I guess I kind of do, but not in that way. Okay. So I think I want to go back to my cell display test. Okay. I want to go back to my main file. I think I want to have to add my environment to my display. Yeah, so like cell display dot add environment. And obviously that's not going to work. Yeah. Okay. So in test draw, I think I want to have an environment. So we can do something like this, I think. Okay. And that'll give all kinds of errors. Okay. How do I, there we go. Environment is not defined. Not surprising. Whoops. Okay. From environment, import environment. Cell display object has no attribute add environment. Okay. Not surprising. We don't need this add method anymore, so I'll change it. And I'm going to leave this empty. We'll make the test force us to add something there. Maybe I should just make this bigger so I can see the error message. Okay, cell display object has no attribute cell. Is that right? Okay, where's that? Oh, I see. That's coming maybe from the other tests. Oh yeah, self.cells. Okay, so we'll comment that out so it doesn't make these tests fail. Okay, now all the tests pass. Okay, but obviously it's not going to draw anything. So we want to assert that the cell has been drawn. Okay, how might we do that? Let's say for environment in self.environments, self.draw environment.
And then in
Oh,
there, through the cells and draw the cells.
yeah. Okay, cell display object has no attribute environments. Not surprising. Self.environments equals empty array. Okay, everything passes, which is interesting
Well,
because,
you didn't have, do you not have a test for add environment?
right. So
Yeah.
let's do that. Fill this in for me. See what it does. Okay, what do we think of this? Assert that the length of the environment is 0, and then we add an environment and assert that the length is 1. Okay. And this test is dumb, I think. We're just asserting that the environment we just assigned is the same one. I don't think that makes sense, and I think it muddies the waters as to what this test is all about. Okay. Yeah, assert 0 equals 1. Change this to make the test pass. It's been surprisingly good so far.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised it got that right
Mm-hmm. Okay.
because you didn't say what test.
Yeah. Okay, so now it's complaining that there's no method draw environment.
Nope.
Um, write the missing. I'm just gonna say write the missing method and see if it.
Right.
Yeah, nice.
Okay. I was gonna say, I think Visual Studio Code does like mostly what you're doing here, but now I would say not.
Yeah,
Like this goes beyond that, at least from my use of it. So okay, and even wow, interesting. Does
yeah.
now.
So, but I think even if we don't have this, maybe all the tests will still pass. Oh, no. But I think that's only because of a syntax error.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how can we make it so that code has to be there?
Um,
Add an assertion that will fail unless the commented code gets uncommented. I'll be really surprised if it gets this. Um, maybe this would technically work, but this is like
can
impossible to understand. I don't think that's any
exactly.
good. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Well, we can assert that draw environment gets called.
Well, so basically it like reached down to your lowest level of your stuff and saw that the dots were on the screen at the expected place, right?
Yeah, that's
And you don't want
yeah,
that. So
yeah.
uh maybe just try the AI and be a little more specific about what you want to test.
I think I'm gonna do this. Add an assertion that asserts that draw cell got called for the cell.
For hold on before you hit enter.
Oh, sorry.
No, no problem. So if I don't even think you have to hit enter. It just seems to do it. Uh Original draw cell. Oh, interesting. So it's basically mocking out the draw cell. Is that what that means?
I don't understand. And I realized before I made that I'll actually have to do this a little bit differently. So I want to change cell to an instance variable. And then here, I think the code can be a little simpler now. Assert that uh, draw cell got called. I don't know.
With
Okay.
cell.
Original draw cell. Whoops. Why did it just do that? Okay. Original draw cell. Oh, creates a mock object there. Interesting. Hmm. I'm not super into this. Maybe there's a
But at
better way
least
to
it
do it.
did what you asked.
Yeah.
I mean, how would you make that better?
I don't know.
Okay.
Hmm. Um, just for fun, I'm gonna see. Okay, so we do have the dots on there. Maybe I'm just gonna be satisfied with that amount of testing. And if that testing is not enough, then
You'll
the
find
pain
out
we
later.
experience later will tell us.
Right.
Okay, and I think I'm gonna wrap up in just a minute.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. All
So
right.
Jason,
Uh-huh.
how familiar are you with Python?
Not much at all.
Okay, that's it's the same with me, like a little bit, but not
Hmm.
much. So it's interesting that you're able to get so far with the AI.
Yeah. Okay. Um, Draw a gray rectangle. Oops, rectangle. Let's just see what happens. Oh, okay. That's not what I meant, but I didn't tell it what I meant exactly.
Right. Um,
Uh,
Maybe draw a gray rectangle around the environment.
yeah. Oh, yeah. The environment should be enclosed in a thick gray border. That's I'll say.
I think thick is gonna mess you up here. But let's see. Oh, nice that they put it in a variable.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, that's better.
what is
But
the
I of course want
thickness measurement unit?
um good question.
Like if you said 15, is it like are these like actual pixels
I think so. I think it's 10
or
pixels thick.
okay, gotcha. Then in that case, never mind. Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, here's something we can write some tests for. Um I think what I actually want, instead of like hard coding these positions and stuff, I think I want it to take the height of the available space and divide it by how many environments there are. So like if there's two, it would just divide it exactly in half. So let's make it that way. And let's think of how we can write tests for that. We could have something called environment height, I suppose, right? A test for something called environment height will make two environments, add them to a cell display, and then assert that the cell display's environment height is equal to half of the cell display's height.
Right now, there's like no concept of environment height or width. Right?
Right.
Okay, I'll see what it says.
Whoops. Okay,
That's weird.
screen height 600 has these two environments. I'm going to hard code this. Expected environment height is 300. Yeah, we'll just say 300. The unfortunate thing about AI is it writes code that resembles the code it's seen,
Mhm.
but a lot of the code it's seen sucks. And so it did things like assign this expected environment height thing, but it's like, why? We can just say it, assert that it's equal to 300 because we can see right here that this is 600.
Yeah, I mean, or even just screen height divided by two instead of 300, but not have the intermediate variable
And we
or
can even
that.
put 600 there. And I'll change 400 to like, I don't know, 100. Maybe it's less distracting that way. And then we can see very clearly that this 300 matches up to 600. And in fact, we don't have to put the cell display way up there. We can put it further down here. And that way the 600 is closer to the 300. Okay, and this will fail, of course. Oh, whoops, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to do PyTest. Okay. Cell display has no environment height. Yep. Um,
Why does
right
cell?
environment height.
Okay,
Oh, I don't know what app property is all about.
maybe it's a special when you have a method or a function or whatever they call it in Python that doesn't take any arguments. You can
Yeah,
call it a
so if this were a
property.
function, it would have to be like that. So apparently
Yeah, there you go.
have like a calculated property. And as AI does, it's coding speculatively and adding more than we need to satisfy the test. I'm going to kill this because who says we need to cover the case where there are no environments?
Right.
Okay. The tests pass. So now for draw environment, um, the rectangle it draws should go from, the top of the environment to the bottom.
Do you want the border to come out of the space for the environment or to be around the environment? In which case your cell display might have to be rejiggered a little bit to fit the environment height might need to be rejiggered.
Yeah, I think the border is going to have to, um, the environment area is going to have to include the border. So the border will have to shrink the environment a little bit. Or it could be that the border is just the border.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking of, but it was at this point, could be
Yeah.
either way.
And that will
But
make it so the environment is not a neat and tidy, uh, it'll make the dimensions not neat and tidy, but it might not be neat and tidy anyway. And maybe we shouldn't have to care about the dimensions of the environment.
right,
Okay.
I'm gonna have to bail here in about 10 minutes.
Okay. Maybe I should get to a good stopping point here. Okay, add environment height. Okay, so how can we take just another tiny step further? I think we need the concept of an environment top.
Well, I feel like we're not drawing the environment right.
Definitely not.
And there's like, where is the environment in the world and who is maintains that? Like, or I'm sorry, the
Yeah,
environment
I
within the
think this
cell
cell display
display.
does that. So here's my thought. Um, write a test for environment top. Um, create two environments and assert that cell display dot environment top 0 is 0 and cell display dot environment top 1 is 300. Okay, let's see if this did the right thing. Whoops. Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. So can you see what I'm thinking there?
Mhm.
Yeah. And this will, of course, fail. And that might be a good place for us to stop because then when we pick up, it'll be pretty clear what direction we were going in.
So it looks like where you're going is you have this loop that draws the environments. You can have an index in that loop that you would just call environment height with that index to draw the
Yeah.
environment in the right place.
Yeah, I mean, all the environments have the same height, but then we can call like environment top for the zeroth environment, environment top for the first environment, and so on.
Okay. Are environments always going to be like a slice of the cell display, the way that you're just described it, or will environments be rectangles within the cell display at some point that may not go from all the way from left to right?
Let's assume for the time being that they do always go from all the way left to all the way right.
Okay, and they're like stacked on top of each other, and
Yeah.
there's no blank space in the cell display.
Yeah. But even
I guess
thus
unless
far,
there's like a remainder at the end.
yeah, even thus far, writing a program like this with tests has been so much better than when I did it before writing it without tests. So I'm glad I'm doing it this way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Um, before we go, which we'll leave in about 30 seconds here, but real quick, any comments on Cursor? What do you think?
My first question was, how much does it cost?
Nothing. At least I
I'm
don't think so.
looking, yeah, there's a three-tier pricing. I'm looking at their website, which is the free tier includes 2 free weeks of the pro tier, but then after that, 2,000 completions and 50 slow premium requests, whatever that is.
Hmm.
And then there's $20 a month is the first pay tier above that.
Okay, so maybe I'm just in a freemium period that I didn't even know about.
Yep. But this definitely looks interesting, compelling enough to try out myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I was skeptical, but this has kind of won me over, I think.
Yeah, I think uh like it doesn't it's not apples and oranges comparison to just using uh uh
Copilot?
the chat GPT, right? Because chat
Oh.
GPT doesn't have all of your uh context. Uh
Hmm.
and but it is more of like a like how does this compare to Copilot? Like if I ask Copilot to do the same things and why, I would wonder would it be much different? Because it looks like it uses chat GPT in the back end, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Yeah, like the things that I like that Copilot can't do is like write the code to make this test pass. Like that is great. Like the autocomplete stuff, I can do without that. That's like not the hard part. But like write me such and such tests, which Copilot could do also. But the real thing I like is saying write the code to make this test pass. Um,
Yeah, that part's
anyway,
been pretty cool. And I like
uh,
how you were very non uh specific and it kind of sussed out what you wanted most times.
yeah, yeah, I was impressed with that. All right, well, thanks for joining me, and thank you, James. Thank you, YouTube viewer, and I will see you next time.
I
Bye.